In 2011, two young people are found hanging from a bridge in Nuevo Laredo. That's their punishment for being involved in cartel business. And they left a chilling note beside them that would change the lives of others forever. We got times when vloggers are messing with cartels.
We're completely reckless. I would say even idiots. Idiots, not even think about the worst case scenario, nothing.
In 2023, two vloggers started making plans to set out on one of their most daring projects, one that would nearly cost them their lives, planning to document the journey of migrants from Central America to the US border. Now that's a really stupid thing to do, and they were about to step into some of the most secretive and violent operations in the region. Both the guys are well known in the travel vlogging community for their fearless approach to content. Carter, a Finnish adventurer, had gained notoriety for his high-risk explorations, documenting war zones, crime-ridden neighborhoods, and even no-go zones that mainstream media avoided. Then there's Rich, a British travel vlogger, building his brand on raw, unfiltered storytelling, often venturing into forgotten corners of the world, particularly in post-Soviet states and Latin America. Now, their collaboration started after meeting at a vlogging event in late 2023, when they instantly bonded over their shared love for high-stakes content. Both had separately filmed in dangerous regions, but this time they wanted to take their riskiest challenge yet, infiltrating human smuggling routes in Mexico. So in early 2024, the two get to Mexico ready to immerse themselves in this experience. Their plan was simple: embed themselves with a group of migrants heading north and film every aspect of the journey, from the border crossings and cartel checkpoints to the extortion and violence many migrants endure. Now, they believed that they'd done their research. Rich even secured contacts who assured him safe passage. But now you're in cartel territory, and all that means nothing. Almost immediately, warning signs appeared. Locals urged them to put their cameras away, telling them that filming in certain spots is a death wish. Cartel lookouts, known as halcones, were taking note, quietly reporting their presence. Now, we don't know how they tried to blend in, but they kind of really stood out because of their accents, expensive equipment, and their constant questions. So their bold approach only really made things worse. They filmed openly, capturing interactions at cartel control checkpoints and recording stories of migrants who'd already been extorted. Their footage, if it was released, would have been highly damaging to the cartels. You shouldn't play a game if you don't know the rules, and these guys were about to lose. The breaking point comes one night as they travel with a group of migrants near the cartel-infested region of Tamaulipas. And as they rest at a makeshift stop, a convoy of armed men suddenly surround them. Oh, this isn't your friendly local law enforcement. We have cartel sicarios, and the migrants are now separated into groups, some being forced to pay bribes to continue their journey. Now, when the cartel operatives reached Carter and Rich, their demeanor changed. These two guys aren't supposed to be here. Their expensive cameras and audio equipment make them look like undercover journalists, or, even worse, DEA agents. Now, before they could react, they're blindfolded, forced into a pickup truck, and driven deep into cartel-controlled territory. The ride is long, bumpy, and filled with tense silence, broken only by the occasional bursts of Spanish, none of which sounded reassuring. So for the next 48 hours, Carter and Rich are held in a small windowless room, subjected to relentless questioning.
Who sent you? You DEA? CIA?
The accusations came in waves, fueled by paranoia that they were spies. Now, their captors were ruthless. Every answer seemed to bring on more suspicion, more aggression. At one point, Rich was dragged from the room, his terrified screams echoing throughout the hallway. Then came a gunshot. Carter sat frozen, his mind racing. Had his friend just been executed? He braces for the inevitable. But hours passed. And then, nothing. The psychological torment continued. Just when Carter believed that they wouldn't make it out alive, their fate takes an unexpected turn. A higher-ranking cartel member intervenes. Whether they found out they were two reckless vloggers or even feared the media attention their deaths would bring, the two are given an ultimatum: leave Mexico immediately, never return, and forget everything you saw. Now, before their release, the cartel made sure they would leave empty-handed. Goodbye cameras, footage, and personal belongings. To Carter's shock, Rich was still alive. Shaken, bruised, and stripped of everything, but alive, and they would walk for miles until they reached this small town, where they found some help and booked the first flight out of the country. When they got back home, the two were both different men. Rich, the once fearless explorer, now became noticeably more cautious. Now he continued vlogging, but kinda stopped talking about cartels. That ordeal had left him deeply shaken, and he's not going to put his life at risk anymore for that crap. Carter, though, still drawn to the adrenaline-fueled adventures, learns to actually now respect the invisible lines that, if crossed, could mean death. Now, even though he continues his high-risk content, he takes far fewer chances when dealing with organized crime. This near-death experience is a cautionary tale about how many creators walk a fine line between curiosity and recklessness, and these two idiots had stepped too far. They picked the wrong cartel to mess with, and they were very lucky to walk away with their lives. In the early hours of September 24th, 2011, in Nuevo Laredo, Mexico, the amputated body of Nena de Laredo was found near a busy intersection with a chilling, handwritten message. It was signed with 4 Z's, the unmistakable signature of the Zetas. Now, before we get to the gruesome details of her execution, we gotta talk about how Nena de Laredo, a simple vlogger, unfortunately pissed off one of Mexico's biggest criminal empires at the time. Marisol Macias Castañeda, better known as Nena de Laredo or La Nena de Laredo Online, was an editor-in-chief of the Primera Hora newspaper in Nuevo Laredo. And behind the screen, she was a fearless citizen, using social media to warn the public about cartel movements, shootouts, and roadblocks. Now, at the time, traditional media in Mexico had already been silenced. Newsrooms were facing threats, kidnappings, and assassinations on a daily basis, leading many to stop reporting on cartel activity altogether. Marisol was secretly posting updates on Nuevo Laredo en Vivo, Nuevo Laredo Live, a platform where locals could share cartel-related dangers and even tip off the authorities. This would become a go-to source for real-time updates on violence and, for some, even a lifeline. People finally had a digital space where they could speak freely and anonymously. At least that's what they believed. You see, because cartels are actually watching. Now, her bravery would come at a devastating price. Los Zetas hunted her down and brutally killed her. And they didn't just kill her. They ripped off her head and placed it on a stone monument. Next to that would be a keyboard, some cables, and discs. An unmistakable message that her death was a direct response to her online activism. To top this off, they left a chilling message that said,
Nuevo Laredo en Vivo and social networking sites. I'm the Laredo girl, and I'm here because of my reports. And yours. For those who don't want to believe, this happened to me because of my actions. For trusting in the Army and Navy. Thank you for your attention. Respectfully, Laredo girl.
She was one of the first people murdered for posting something like this on social media. When they found her body near the Texas border, authorities had confirmed her identity, though some media outlets reported different versions of her name. Shockingly, she wasn't an investigative reporter at Primera Hora. She was an administrator. But the cartel doesn't care. They somehow uncovered her true identity, and the news of her death would send shockwaves throughout the online community and country. Nuevo Laredo en Vivo users were outraged and terrified. Some others refused to be silenced. Meanwhile, paranoia was just growing. Press freedom organizations condemned Marisol's murder, calling it a terrifying precedent for journalists and citizen reporters alike. This would be the first documented case of cartel killing someone explicitly for posting on social media. Her death was part of a broader pattern, though. Around the same time, 2 individuals, a man and this woman, were found hanging from a bridge in Nuevo Laredo, simply because they posted the same kind of stuff that Nena did on that same site. Their bodies now displaying signs of extreme torture. A message left with them as well, making it clear that even non-traditional journalists, like bloggers, online activists, and independent videographers, are not safe. Now, after Marisol's death, in just 2012 alone, 10 journalists were killed in Nuevo Laredo. One of the most chilling of these would be the killing of Felina, real name Maria del Rosario Fuentes Rubio, a doctor who contributed to the citizen journalism platform Valor por Tamaulipas, which focused on exposing cartel violence. In 2014, she was kidnapped and executed, with her killers taking over her Twitter account to post pictures of her murder as a warning. The case would become another example of the dangers in using social media to report on organized crime. Many vloggers who attempted to film cartel-controlled areas in Nuevo Laredo went missing, though their disappearances were often undocumented due to secrecy surrounding such cases. In the years following these high-profile killings in the city, social media-based reporting on cartels became increasingly covert. Some platforms like Valor por Tamaulipas eventually shut down due to security concerns. Even today, the threat is still there. Anyone attempting to document cartel activities in Mexico, especially in Nuevo Laredo, whether through text, video, or social media, faces the real possibility of violent retribution. Whatever the answer, one thing is clear. The war against truth had reached cyberspace. In September 2017, a seasoned location scout met a tragic and mysterious end while on assignment for Netflix's hit series, Narcos. No witnesses, no clear suspects, and a crime scene shrouded in silence. So we can't help to ask, was this guy simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, or did he knowingly cross into cartel territory? Well, let's find out.
Born in Mexico, Munoz Portal made a career using his homeland as the setting for cinema fantasy, scouting locations for the James Bond film Spectre, the Fast and Furious franchise.
Carlos Munoz Portal was a top Mexican location scout known for finding breathtaking remote spots for films like Spectre, Sicario, and Fast and Furious. But in 2017, while scouting for Narcos, his search for the perfect backdrop took him straight into cartel territory, a kind of place that no one would actually want to go to. A little backstory into Carlos was that he's born and raised in Mexico and developed a passion for film production at an early age. He built his career as a location scout, a job that would require extensive travel and first-hand knowledge of Mexico's most visually striking and narratively compelling landscapes. He worked on productions that would require gritty, realistic settings, often venturing into areas where drug-related violence was rampant. His work on Sicario and Spectre had already put him in close proximity to cartel-controlled areas, but his professionalism and experience allowed him to navigate these dangerous environments. So in September 2017, Carlos is scouting locations in central Mexico for Narcos, Mexico, the Netflix series that chronicles the rise of the drug cartels in the country. Now, the production team was looking for this authentic, gritty location that could serve as a backdrop for the show's depiction of the drug trade. Carlos is alone in his car, looking for the perfect place to film, when he unknowingly crosses into a very dangerous area. His body was later found in his car in Temascalapa, a town near the state of Mexico and Hidalgo, one of the regions plagued by cartel violence. This poor man had been shot multiple times, and the circumstances of his death were chilling. A seasoned location scout, familiar with the risks of the job, had met a very violent end. Authorities speculated the cartel may have mistaken him for an undercover agent or even a rival operative. Others make it more simple. An unfamiliar face with a camera and notes, maybe it drew suspicion to a place where strangers weren't welcome. Either way, the impact of Carlos's murder sent shockwaves throughout the film industry. Narcos Mexico was forced to reconsider its filming locations, and the crew became acutely aware now of the dangers of working in cartel-dominated territories. The Mexican government even launched its own investigation. But like many other cartel-related murders, the case went cold. The exact motives of the killing were never confirmed. But this poor man's death served as a grim reminder that even those who document the world's darkest corners are not immune to its dangers. In March 2024, Maluf set his sights on Haiti, a country in the grip of gang violence. His goal was to interview Jimmy Barbecue Cherizet, a feared gang leader responsible for orchestrating mass violence and controlling large sections of Port-au-Prince. However, within days of his arrival, Malouf's adventure takes a terrifying turn. While moving through gang-controlled areas, he and his Haitian guide, Jean-Sacre Chanrubin, were abducted by members of the notorious 400 Mawazo gang, a ruthless group known for mass kidnappings, extortion, and executions, and held for a ransom of $600,000.
I'm Arab. I spent my early 20s locked in my room as a professional gamer. Quickly noticed my life passing me before my eyes. Now, I spend my time exploring the globe's most dangerous and undocumented places because riding the line of death is where I feel most alive.
Addison Malouf became known online as your fellow Arab, a daring content creator building a reputation off of traveling to some of the world's most dangerous places. Unlike typical travel vloggers who focus mainly on luxury vacations and scenic destinations, Malouf's looking for the high-risk places, immersing himself in the lives of gang members, war-torn communities, and even cartel-controlled territories. His fearless approach to storytelling attracted millions of viewers. But in 2024, his thirst would lead him to one of his most dangerous encounters yet, one that nearly cost him his life. Malouf's YouTube career began back in 2016, primarily focusing on gaming content like Fortnite and Grand Theft Auto 5. However, as the demand for real-life adventure content grew, he pivoted toward immersive experiences, driving into crime-ridden neighborhoods, favelas, and cartel strongholds. His ability to communicate with locals and gain their trust made his content raw, unfiltered, and dangerously authentic. In 2023, he gained international attention after interviewing a balaclava-clad gang in a Rio de Janeiro favela, an experience that fueled his desire to explore even more perilous territories.
On day 2, we're granted access to a deep underground stash house, where the boys then take me to the mountains of CDMX at 2 in the morning to unload their arsenal.
One would think that after that experience with Haiti, he would just stop. But no, Arab journeyed into the world of organized crime. This time, it wasn't just another adventure. It was a high-stakes gamble where one wrong move could have turned his 5-day stay with the Mexican cartel into his final vlog.
For the next 100 hours, I will be living with the most dangerous cartel in the entire world. The only thing the world knows about these guys is that they're some of the most ruthless killers that exist.
Now, he'd already proven his willingness to venture into dangerous places, but this time he wasn't just passing through. He was living amongst them, eating with them, traveling with them, and seeing firsthand how they operated. Unlike his controlled interview settings with gang members in Brazil or Haiti, this experience put him in the middle of a world where trust was fragile and suspicion could turn deadly in an instant.
All right, we're in Mexico City. We're meeting up now with our plug, who's supposed to introduce us to the cartel. So, don't know if I'm excited or not. What's up, boss? How are you? Hola.
Welcome.
Buenos dias. How are you, bro? Give me a hug. Mi amigo.
Ah, yes.
From the moment he got to Mexico, Arab had to prove he wasn't a threat. Cartels don't take kindly to outsiders, especially those with cameras asking too many questions. So he managed to get access through contacts he'd built over time. But that didn't mean he was completely safe.
Chilacayota. Trying a chilacayota. It's got this pulp texture inside of it.
These are guys who deal with betrayal and violence daily. Paranoia is not just part of their lives, it's necessary for survival. Even the slightest misstep, an ill-timed joke, a casual remark, just looking at a wrong person for too long, could have been enough to make them turn on him.
Okay, I'm scared for my life. And the only way for me to pretend that I'm not is to tell you guys to just not think about it. Just pretend that it doesn't exist.
Saludo! Salud! Salud!
One close call came when Arab was invited to a private meeting between cartel members. The atmosphere's thick with tension, with armed men discussing their ongoing conflicts, logistics, and ironically, security threats. Arab sits among them, fully aware that if anybody in this room decided he didn't belong, he's dead, no second chances. If he'd pulled out his camera at the wrong time, if someone had suspected this guy was secretly working with the cops, or if they just simply decided they didn't like him, he wouldn't have walked away. I mean, how many stories do we know where journalists, vloggers, and regular civilians stumble in by accident to cartel business and disappear without a trace? Now, his time in Mexico would put him in situations where danger wasn't just theoretical, it was literally inches away. Cartel convoys don't operate like your standard road trip. They move fast, in bulletproof vehicles, and anyone following too closely or looking too curious could be an undercover cop, a rival gang member, or a government informant. And at one point, Arab is a part of this convoy. The cartel members are on edge, weapons ready, a wrong turn, a surprise police checkpoint, or even an unexpected rival attack could turn this adventure into a full-blown shootout. Now, Arab also witnessed the reality of cartel paranoia when he saw how they dealt with outsiders who weren't supposed to be there. A man's brought in for questioning, suspected of leaking information out there. The cartel didn't leave loose ends. This moment reinforced a chilling truth. If they thought he was an informant, a spy, or just an untrustworthy guest, he's gone. But hey, his biggest skill is the ability to blend in and adapt. Arab knew how to navigate these conversations, when to stay silent, and how to position himself as an observer rather than a participant. But even that's not always enough. There was a moment when cartel members began questioning his true intentions. Why was he there? Who was he really working for? His ability to talk his way out of these dangerous situations saved him before, but in this moment, he's realizing just how thin that line is between being a guest and being a liability. The reality of cartel living hit him in unexpected ways. Despite the media's portrayal of ruthless, faceless killers, Arab saw the human side of these men. Some of these guys were just trying to survive in a world where there were no other options. Some had been forced into this as teenagers, others were born into it. But these little moments of humanity wouldn't change their brutal nature. Everyone he met lived under a constant shadow of death, whether from rival factions, the police, or even their own organization if they made a mistake. One of the closest calls he had was when he was moving through a cartel-controlled town and nearly crossed paths with a rival group. Had someone mistaken him for an associate of the wrong faction, he would have been executed right there. Because for these people, explanations don't come first, bullets do. And so, reflecting on his experience, Arab admitted that he underestimated just how dangerous things could get. This guy had lived with gang members before, but cartels are entirely different. Their world isn't about just crime. It's a war zone. Had he tried secretly to record something he wasn't supposed to? Had he asked the wrong question? Had he been there on a bad day? Well, his name would have been added to the long list of people who disappeared. His series offered viewers an unparalleled look into the world of the cartel, but it also served as a reminder of the razor-thin margin between surviving that experience and becoming another cautionary tale. Unlike many others who try to document this kind of thing, Arab got lucky. He didn't just visit cartel territory, this guy was living it, breathing in its dangers, and just walked away with a story that few have lived to tell. Now, the truth is, this could have gone 100 different ways, and in 99 of them, he wouldn't have made it out, showing you how even seasoned vloggers can maybe push it too far. His encounters prove that even with cartel permission, the unpredictability of the criminal underworld as a whole meant that anyone could suddenly mess with the wrong cartel without realizing it until it's too late. In September 2024, the U.S. Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC, included Garcia on a sanctions list under its illicit drugs program, suggesting connections to drug-related activities. However, Garcia didn't publicly address these allegations. Miguel Vivanco Garcia, widely recognized by his online persona, El Yasper, was a rising social media influencer in Mexico known for some bold content, a flashy lifestyle, and even controversial humor. He'd built a significant following by sharing content typically featuring comedic sketches, daily life vlogs, and explorations of local culture, resonating with a lot of viewers in some of his videos, even showcasing off his wealth, his run-ins with the law, and his proximity to the darker sides of Mexican street life. Now, he often collaborated with fellow influencer Marquitos Toys, producing videos that entertained a broad audience. But for someone born and raised in Guadalajara, Jalisco, even with all the wealth he acquired, Garcia had a turbulent upbringing. His early life remains largely undocumented, but he grew up in a cartel-influenced neighborhood, and like many young Mexicans, he was exposed to a harsh reality of street life. Rather than shying away from it, he would learn the culture, using his social media platforms to display his connections, his wealth, and his reckless attitude toward danger. Garcia would often flaunt expensive cars, stacks of cash, and a lot of guns, imagery that resonated with young audiences fascinated by cartel culture. Unlike influencers who focus on lifestyle and motivation, his brand thrived on controversy. He would post videos of himself partying with individuals rumored to have ties to criminal organizations, making offhanded jokes about local gangs, and mocking rivals in a way that blurred the line between entertainment and real-world consequences. Now, his downfall likely began when he started posting content that many suspected was directed at cartel figures. In a series of videos leading up to his death, Garcia made cryptic remarks and veiled insults that seemed to be aimed at someone specific. And while some viewers dismissed it as part of his online persona, others speculated that he was provoking the wrong people. In Mexico, when cartels operate under strict codes of respect and fear, even the slightest public insult can be interpreted as a challenge. So on the night of November 21st, 2024, masked men would storm Garcia's family home in Quila, Sinaloa. Witnesses reported that he was forcibly taken with no ransom demand ever made public. The swiftness of that abduction suggested that it wasn't about money, but more of an execution order. 2 days later, on November 23rd, his body's found on a dirt road near Culiacan, exhibiting signs of severe torture and approximately 70 gunshot wounds. Oh, his hands were bound and his eyes were covered with green tape. Authorities say this may be linked to organized crime, more specifically, Los Chapitos, sons of El Chapo and a new faction of the Sinaloa cartel. The nature of his injuries would align with the violent methods attributed to this group. Unfortunately, specific details about his videos are limited due to the removal or inaccessibility of his content following his tragic death. The investigation into Vivanco's death is still ongoing, with no arrests reported as of now. Garcia's murder sent shockwaves throughout the community. It was a brutal reminder that playing around with cartel imagery, joking about criminals, or even acting like a tough guy can have fatal consequences, specifically in a country where organized crime holds the most power. His death mirrored other cases where, again, social media figures found themselves entangled with the wrong people. Again, underlining the line between fame and fatality in high-risk environments.